And I must have done something wrong. And I found her in my house. She kind of.
I am out at her house now. I just went in her home because I'm so worried about her.
This is 30-year-old Matthew Hoffman. He's just been arrested at one of the most bizarre crime scenes ever, filled with something so strange that you'll have to see it to believe it. After sitting in complete silence for hours, in approximately 3 seconds you'll see him finally crack and speak for the first time, admitting that a missing 13-year-old girl was found in his basement.
I can't tell you anything because I don't know.
But what he says next is completely unexpected. When Valerie Haythorne became concerned that something horrible had happened to her coworker after she failed to show up for work, she broke into her house only to find a disturbing scene. However, she would soon discover that her coworker wasn't the only one missing, and the truth of what happened was even more horrific than anyone even feared. The nightmare began on Wednesday, November 10th, 2010 in Apple Valley, Ohio, when 32-year-old Tina Herman, a reliable employee at the local Dairy Queen, missed a day of work. For most people, this wouldn't be a big deal. However, she also wasn't answering any texts or calls,
I'll be right
all
back,
of which...
y'all. I'll be right back.
which was highly unusual for her. Concerned for her well-being, Valerie Haythorne, Tina's manager, decided to drive by her house and make sure everything was okay. She saw Tina's truck was in the driveway with another unknown car, and that the lights were on inside the house. But she still felt like something wasn't quite right. She called the police and told them that Tina hadn't shown up for work.
Sheriff Barber's office.
Hi, my name is Valerie Haythorne, and I work at a Dairy Queen. I'm the general manager out there. One of my employees did not show up for work this afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Which is totally uncharacteristic of her. She's one of my managers.
Okay.
I drove out by her house and went and knocked on the door and left her a note. She's not answering her phone, which is totally uncharacteristic. She's not answering her texts, and she is not at home, but her truck and her coat are in the house. Her truck's there and her coat is in the house. I'm very concerned about her.
What's her name?
Her name is Tina Herman, Hermann.
Okay.
I know that she and her boyfriend are splitting up, and he can be a real jerk with her.
Okay. Do you have a phone number for her?
Oh God, I do, but it's in my phone. I'd have to call you back.
Okay, that's fine. What was your name again?
My name is Valerie Haythorne.
Okay. Okay, I will have a deputy swing out there and check on her.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime.
All right. Bye.
Responding rather quickly, 2 different officers at different times showed up to check the residence, but when they knocked, no one came to the door. They left the matter unresolved. The next day, an officer called East Knox Schools to find out if Tina's 2 children, 13-year-old Sarah Maynard and 10-year-old Cody Maynard, had been in school. They were told that both children were in school on Wednesday, but hadn't shown up on Thursday. They were 13-year-old. The next day, an officer called East Knox Schools to find showed up.
She's a real jerk with her.
Okay.
Her name is Tina Herman, Hermann.
Okay.
I know that she and her boyfriend are splitting up, and he can be a real jerk with her.
Okay. Do you have a phone number for her?
Oh God, I do, but it's in my phone. I'd have to call you back.
Okay, that's fine. What was your name again?
My name is Valerie Haythorne.
Okay. Okay, I will have a deputy swing out there and check on her.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime.
All right.
Bye.
Responding rather quickly, 2 different officers at different times showed up to check the residence, but when they knocked, no one came to the door. They left the matter unresolved. The next day, an officer called East Knox Schools to find out if Tina's 2 children, 13-year-old Sarah Maynard and 10-year-old Cody Maynard, had been in school. They were told that both children were in school on Wednesday, but hadn't shown up on Thursday. Soon, a man named Ron Metcalf was also contacting the police because his girlfriend, 41-year-old Stephanie Spring, appeared to be missing. She was Tina's best friend, and they'd been together before he lost contact with Stephanie. Ron had last spoken to Stephanie around 12:45 on Wednesday, but she hadn't answered any of his calls since then. Around 4 p.m. on this same Thursday, Tina's determined boss, Valerie, decided to take matters into her own hands.
Hey, you ever smoke and end up like your nose start running when you smoke? Like, what the fuck? What type of shit is that? Don't make no sense.
When she got to Tina's house, she noticed that Tina's truck was now gone from the driveway, and only the unknown vehicle was left. This vehicle would turn out to belong to Stephanie. When her knocks on the front door went unanswered, Valerie decided to enter the house using an unlocked window on the back porch. Once inside, she saw blood in the bathroom and on the carpet, as well as splattered throughout the home. She immediately left the house and called the police.
As she should.
This is Deputy Sylvia. Can I help you?
Yes, this is Valerie Haythorne. I called in last night about Tina Herman being missing. I am out at her house now. I just went in her home because I'm so...
Hold on, she ain't got no boyfriend. She didn't go out there with no... She didn't take
Valerie decided to enter the house, Stephanie, and only the unknown vehicle was left. This truck was now gone from the driveway, and only the unknown vehicle was left. This vehicle would turn out to belong to Stephanie. When her knocks on the front door went unanswered, Valerie decided to enter the house using an unlocked window on the back porch. Once inside, she saw blood in the bathroom and on the carpet, as well as splattered throughout the home. She immediately left the house and called the police.
This is Deputy Sylvia. Can I help you?
Yes, this is Valerie Haythorne. I called in last night about Tina Herman being missing. I am out at her house now. I just went in her home because I'm so worried about her. There is blood everywhere.
Okay. Where are you at? I'm sorry. I just got back today, so.
Okay.
So you just need to kind of fill me in a little bit, okay?
Tina Herman works for me. She did not show up for work yesterday, and we have not been able to locate her or her children for the last 24 hours now. I just spoke with...
No, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Okay.
I just need an address. I just need an address.
48.
Bro, this dispatcher is definitely a dick. Listen to how he's talking to her. Like, he's impatient. Like, bro, you don't have to be a douchebag.
No, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Okay.
I just need an address. I just need an address.
481 Kings Beach Drive in Apple Valley.
But I get
Okay,
where he's
just
coming
give us
from.
a few minutes and we'll
They always say that when you make a 911 call, you're supposed to give your address first. That's the first thing you're supposed to do. I don't know. I ain't never called 911.
be en route, okay?
Okay, that's...
Don't go back in the house.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in the driveway.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
All right,
Bye.
By Friday, November 12th, the police were officially investigating 4 disappearances: Tina, Sarah, Cody, and Stephanie. The family dog, a miniature pinscher named Tanner, was also missing.
They took
The house
dog,
was searched
too.
for clues, and the first
Damn.
discovery was very disheartening. The initial crime scene investigation concluded that the evidence indicated assault with bodily injury, including a large amount of blood and what looked like drag marks leading to the bathroom. There was also blood on the top of the basement stairs and in the basement. Something terrible had happened in Tina's home, but the exact extent of the horror still wasn't clear. The first suspect in the disappearances was the most obvious. Right at the beginning of the investigation, the police were told that Tina and her boyfriend were in the middle of a breakup, and her friends were worried that something may have happened between them. Gregory Borders, Tina's live-in boyfriend, who was not the father of her children, was interviewed immediately after he came to the police station voluntarily. In his statement, he admitted that he and Tina had split up, but they were still living in the house together until either of them could make other arrangements. Interestingly, Gregory normally has Wednesdays off from work, the day Tina went missing, but he decided to work overtime at Target Distribution in West Jefferson, Ohio, about 1.5 hours away. He worked from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., but instead of coming back home, he said he stayed at a friend's house in Urbana, as they had plans to play golf in Bellefontaine the next day. It all seemed very convenient, except that all of his time was accounted for, and his friend verified that they had dinner together and stayed in watching TV. Gregory received a call from his mother around noon on Thursday, and she told him that Tina was missing. But instead of panicking and coming to help look for her, he just assumed she took the day off and continued to golf. Gregory only realized his assumption couldn't have been more wrong when he finally returned to the home he shared with Tina. There he found that an investigation into the disappearances had already begun. After investigators cleared the crime scene, Gregory's own family arrived with bleach to clean up the blood in the house so that he wouldn't have to see it. With Gregory cleared, investigators had to move on to other leads. The next development was on that same Thursday when Tina's vehicle was discovered abandoned in the campus parking lot of the nearby Kenyon College, with no sign of her or anyone else. But it was something at the crime scene back at Tina's house that soon became the most promising piece of evidence. Investigators found Walmart shopping bags containing 2 tarps and a box of heavy-duty trash bags. Now, that's not a good sign at all. But in this case, it was also the investigation's big break because, along with the shopping bags, they also found a receipt for the purchase. Detectives wasted no time requesting the surveillance footage from the Walmart in Mount Vernon and began scouring it for someone making the suspicious purchase of garbage bags and tarps, along with a turkey sandwich and a t-shirt which was seen on the receipt. It wasn't long before they found him, buying the items just after midnight on Thursday morning. Just to be sure they had the right guy, investigators obtained a copy of the receipt from the suspicious transaction and compared the product codes with the receipt they found at the crime scene, and they matched. The suspect was a white male, 25 to 40 years old, with brown hair, wearing a camouflage shirt and glasses. He was caught on the footage leaving the Walmart in a silver Toyota Yaris. Using still images of the suspect, the investigators used the Ohio Law Enforcement Gateway to search for any owners of a silver Toyota Yaris. It was then that they found a name, 30-year-old Matthew J. Hoffman. His vehicle appeared to match the surveillance video, and in his Ohio BMV photo, taken only 16 days before the Walmart footage was caught, he was even wearing a camouflage shirt similar to the one in the video. Obviously, the police knew they had to talk to him, but Matthew had 2 possible addresses. One belonged to his mother, Patricia Heglin, and was only 0.4 miles from Tina's home. The other was registered under his name and was only 10 miles from Tina's. If there was any doubt that Matthew was the right guy, a search of the Knox County Sheriff's Office revealed that he had actually been stopped near where Tina's van was found within the same hour that it was discovered. An officer had stopped him to ask why he was in the area, but believing nothing was amiss, let him go. The sheriff's office also revealed that there was also a report of domestic violence between Matthew and his then-living girlfriend that occurred about 1 month before the disappearances. During an argument, Matthew allegedly choked his now ex-girlfriend. It was also discovered that following the breakup, Matthew had just recently been fired from his job as a tree trimmer for apparently making his supervisor uncomfortable. His ex-girlfriend was contacted, and she told the police that Matthew no longer lived at his mother's house and hadn't for several months. Finally, the police knew where to look for Tina, Sarah, Cody, and Stephanie. Once search warrants were obtained just 3 days after the disappearances, a SWAT team descended on Matthew's home. Because they weren't sure if Matthew had kidnapped the 4 people, they conducted a no-knock search and used a ram to force entry through the front door. They then threw in a flash grenade before they entered the home. What they found was more bizarre than they could have ever expected. Matthew was asleep on the sofa. He resisted a little by not showing his hands when asked, but he was quickly arrested and removed from the home. As soon as he was taken care of, officers noticed something particularly strange about the house. There were leaves everywhere. The living room floor was almost completely covered in a huge pile of leaves. At first, the police were worried that the leaf pile might be hiding something sinister, like a body. But after searching through, they were relieved to find that this wasn't the case. Still, things only got weirder from there. There were also bags of leaves lining every wall of the bathroom. After breaking down the door of a locked bedroom, police discovered what looked like a marijuana growing operation that was not active. In a freezer, they found 2 dead squirrels lying right next to a few red popsicles. But the biggest surprise was hidden in the basement. A cabinet was blocking the doorway, but once moved, an officer discovered Tina's daughter, Sarah Maynard, lying on a sleeping bag on top of a pile of leaves in Matthew's basement.
What the
Her
fuck?
feet and hands were bound with yellow rope and duct tape. Alongside her in the basement were more trash bags filled with leaves. Thankfully, Sarah appeared to be unharmed, but she was wearing a makeshift diaper made from a plastic bag. As officers approached her, she was very confused and told them that she was late for school and kept asking if they knew anything about what happened to her dog, Tanner. Sarah was likely in shock or possibly dissociating. When something very scary or traumatic happens, someone may dissociate to protect themselves. They may feel disconnected from what is really going on or as though they are in a dreamlike state because reality is too difficult to face. Have you ever gotten in the car to drive home and then suddenly you realize you're almost back, but you don't remember the drive? That is a very mild form of dissociation. There was no sign of Tina, Cody, or Stephanie anywhere in the home.
Damn, I do that
Investigators
all the time.
took care to photograph the way Sarah was bound before they freed her and brought her upstairs to wait for medical attention. Sarah was then brought by EMS to Knox Community Hospital, where she was thoroughly examined and questioned. Despite the trauma she'd endured, she carefully outlined every detail of what had happened. She said that she and her brother had returned home from school on Wednesday and were attacked by Matthew as soon as they entered. She ran to her bedroom, but Matthew grabbed her and carried her down into the basement. There he found some rope that was already in the house and used it to tie her up. He then left her on the kitchen floor for a period of time. She wasn't sure how long before he put her into Stephanie's Jeep and drove her to the Howard Ballfield parking lot. He covered her with blankets and left her there. Matthew later returned and put her into another car and drove to his house. Once there, he bound her hands in work gloves and duct tape, had her gagged, and kept her locked in the bathroom in a closet before he put her into the basement. Sarah said that she believed Matthew had killed her mother, brother, Stephanie, and her dog, but she wasn't sure. She revealed that during the time Matthew had kidnapped her, about 4 days, he cut her finger with a knife, repeatedly assaulted her, and said that he was going to release her before Christmas, but he never told her what happened to her mother, brother, or Stephanie. After being medically cleared, Sarah was then released into her father's custody. Initially, after he was arrested, Matthew was placed under 24-hour watch after crying and threatening to harm himself. Eventually, though, he was brought in to speak with investigators. The following interrogations took place over 4 days and have never been analyzed before. The interrogator reads Matthew his Miranda rights, but he's almost completely unresponsive and barely even acknowledges the detectives.
Bottom paragraph says, my rights have been explained to me and I understand each of those rights. Having those rights in mind, I'm willing this time to make a statement or answer questions. You understand that, man? You understand?
It's possible that Matthew is in a catatonic state, which can occur with some psychological disorders, including schizophrenia. When the person is experiencing catatonia, they may be completely unresponsive with their body, like Matthew is now. It's also possible that this is his way of coping with the stress of the interrogation. Someone who is under extreme stress may limit their movements in an effort to go unnoticed, also known as freezing. Of course, it's also the possibility that he's refusing to cooperate to intentionally avoid having to answer questions.
You want to talk to one of us alone, or do you want us both in here, or you comfortable with both of us being here? Man?
Soon they start to get creative in the hopes that Matthew will begin talking.
Hey, Matt, can I ask you a question? You look familiar. You look familiar to me. You work out at the gym?
Though Matthew remains silent, he finally reacts, but what he does is one of the most bizarre things we have ever seen in an interrogation.
You know, other people, there's family members out there of other people, and all they want is closure. That's all they want. They've been up for days like you and I have, you know? Heart hurts. I don't understand sign language, man.
Matthew's hand signals seem to say that his heart is broken. This is, of course, not real sign language. However, it's certainly odd that he's using hand signals to communicate, but this could be an indication of Matthew's childlike nature.
What do you want from us? Tell me what you want from us.
Matthew sits with his eyes closed as the detectives try relentlessly to get him to start talking.
We want a couple minutes here just to kind of think about all this? Because I know it's overwhelming for you right now.
I'm beginning to think Matt don't care.
He cares.
The detectives are
Playing
speaking
good
as if
cop,
Matthew
bad
isn't
cop.
in the room. They're likely trying to see if something they say strikes a chord and makes him want to chime in to correct their assumptions about him. When this attempt doesn't work, the interrogator tries another, more confrontational approach.
Somebody will cry today. If I make a phone call after this interview, somebody will cry. But I guarantee you, some of that cry will be joy because they know where Cody is. They know where Tina is. They know where Stephanie is. I know they'll cry for somewhat joy, Matt, because I've already heard it with Sarah.
Matthew tightens one hand into a fist and then covers it with the other hand, a sign that he's feeling very anxious.
What I'm probably going to do, Matt, is leave this room, and when I get away from these guys, probably cry like a baby. Because it's working on me, man. Big time.
Finally, after sitting in silence and almost completely unresponsive for over 4 hours, Matthew cracks.
I can't tell you anything because I don't know. You don't know? I knew I must have done something wrong. And I found her in my house. She kind of. And so I took care of her.
Hold on, what? He found her in his. Let me play it back. He sounds stupid.
And I found her in my house. She kind of.
Because you tied her up.
And so I took care of her.
Psychopaths often try to paint themselves as the good guy or the hero, like Matthew did here, when claiming that he took care of Sarah. This is a sign of antisocial personality disorder, also known as ASPD. However, when someone with psychopathy does something horrible, they will sometimes pick out one positive thing they did in the midst of all the horrible things in order to claim that they are good. What Matthew claims he had done to, in his words, take care of Sarah, was feed her, let her watch the movie Iron Man, and allow her to borrow his copy of the book Treasure Island.
How do we know anything else?
Treasure Island. Let her watch the movie had done to, in his words, take care of Sarah, was feed her, let her watch the movie Iron Man, and allow her to borrow his copy of the book Treasure Island.
How do we know anything else? So I was trying to figure out what had happened.
Matthew's claim to not know what he did is one of the mysteries with psychopaths and people with severe personality disorders, because they sometimes dissociate and can't recall their actions. This is particularly true for the very mentally ill psychopaths, such as someone with psychopathy mixed with psychosis. Other times, their supposed inability to remember is just their way of manipulating and pretending that they weren't aware of what they were doing.
At what point did you find your tied up at your house? Thursday. Did you ask her? Did you speak with her about, what happened? How did you get here? Anything like that?
She said I'd done it. I figured I had done something I didn't know. I just try to put pieces together.
It still isn't clear what happened to Tina, Cody, or Stephanie, or where they are. However, given the evidence of blood found in the home and Sarah's testimony that she believed Matthew killed them, investigators weren't hopeful that they would be found alive.
Did you recognize her as someone that you had seen before? And, did you realize that this is a person you'd seen before that now was in your house? Or
I don't know.
didn't make that connection? You don't know her? I mean, I'm just asking because they were the pictures on the camera and they weren't taken, at the time that this happened. So I was just wondering if you, in other words, if it was someone you knew and then, wow, how did you get here in my house? Because she said that she asked you a couple of times. Do you remember that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Childlike behavior is very typical of people with personality disorders, including ASPD. However, Matthew is extremely childlike. When under stress, psychopaths and many people with ASPD often regress to childlike behaviors, but they often do so knowingly as a way to attempt to manipulate their way out of consequences. A female officer, believed to be a psychologist, enters the room and begins speaking with Matthew one-on-one. She set up the room differently so they're more side by side instead of across the table, which doesn't allow Matthew to have the barrier of the table between them, keeping his distance and guard up.
I think what we were talking about earlier and kind of feeling alone. And that's definitely how I felt when I went to Chicago. I knew no one there. I was the only one out of my class sent there.
The interviewer is trying to build rapport with Matthew and trying to make it seem like she can relate to him, possibly feeling lonely in a city where you don't know anyone. This is to make him feel less judged and to start moving him closer to a confession.
But you have purpose.
Yeah.
Ikigai.
What's that?
Japanese.
Oh.
Ikigai. It's purpose.
Mm.
She latches onto her comment about a lack of purpose. She'll now likely use this as the theme for why he did what he did, as he was receptive to it. This is a step in the read technique of theme development. When developing themes, the interrogator speaks in a soft, soothing voice to appear non-threatening and to lull the suspect into a false sense of security.
So I did go out to Colorado after I graduated high school.
Did you?
That's where I got into my first trouble. I did something really bad. And I pieced it together. I figured it out. And I went
This
to
kind of
something.
zoning me
That was my
out,
first
man.
prison time.
I really don't care about
You went out there with a
crime
sense of purpose. I don't.
at all. Oh, Lord. Anyway, I'm going to drop another video probably in a little bit. If not, probably tomorrow. Probably will after this video's done uploading. But see y'all in a little bit. Peace.